major event, if something like that happens on top of, a power outage or a software glitch, or whatever.
Or something where the government decides to shut the banks down and then on Monday basically say your $100 is now worth $10.
Oh, there you go. That's
But
another panic situation. Yep.
Oh, that would be. I would advise people, have a little bit of gold or a little bit of silver, in your position, or in your, being available to you. Because if something happens, that gold is going to be worth something. If something happens, maybe that $100 bill or $10 or $20 bill is not worth anything. And that I would recommend to people. Again, too, if something happened, even with the satellite system or the internet system or the government, you go to the bank and you can't pull your money out, or you only allowed to pull out $250, how are you going to feed your family, pay your rent, or what have you?
Yeah. And that always brings me back to the kind of the squirrel syndrome where, every time I go to the store, I try to think about that and say, well, what a little extra thing that can I buy that's not perishable that I can stick in my closet or put in my car even, to have on me in case I need it, if something like that happens. Because, you got to figure if you can't survive for the first 2 weeks or month, after a major event like that, it's going to be a tough situation. There'll be people really being desperate at that point.
Oh, yeah. And hey, on Facebook, I just want to say hi, Robert. Hi, William. Hi, Jason. Russell and Troy Bacon. And let's see if I can see. I don't have my glasses on, so it's kind of hard to see.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Kevin. Kevin's on there, and Kevin Beagle. Anita's on there. We're getting quite a cool chat room going on here.
And then we got Karen Banks. We have another Jason. And we have a couple other people on there. And they're just kind of on my end. They're just coming on every which way. And hey, now you can see what we're doing here on our show. And, one thing I kind of always tell people, and if you hear noise in the background, I have to say, we're having our Christmas tonight. Because all my 8 kids, they all have their families and they work. And this is the only day we can get together. So if it's noisy, I apologize. But, I tell people, keep 2 weeks worth of food, even if it's not the type of food you like, in your cupboards. And, maybe not so much in the freezer, because for some reason, if I learned my lesson here about 10 years ago where I live, we lost our power for about 7 days. And I tell you, all my food, in the freezer, deep freeze, and my backup freezer, it all went bad. So, carry some, what's that, MIR type of food, survival food, and, pork and beans and stuff like that. Carry a 2-week supply because, if something happens, you can at least, and have water also. That's very important too, because a lot of places like where I'm at, if I lose my electricity, I don't have no water because the well isn't going to pump.
Yeah. No, exactly. Matter of fact, what I did this Christmas is go to REI, and you can get them anywhere, but I got some of those life straws where you can just suck right out of a mud puddle if you had to and get fresh water. And I gave them to some of my kids, all my kids, just make sure they had something on them, either in their backpack or in their car or whatever, in case something like that happens. That's your first need is water for sure.
Oh, yeah. So that, and if anything ever happened, let's say if the government kind of went south for some reason too, a lot of people I have talked to said, well, hey, I got a generator, and I have enough diesel or gas to run it for a week or two. I'm going to tell you a little secret. If we ever went into any type of chaos, and I'm not saying we're going to, and I'm not trying to scare anybody. You heard the disclaimer at the beginning of the show, I hope.
That's right.
You know what? If the worst thing you could do, I hate to say it, is be running a generator where it can be heard a block or two away, especially if you're living someplace, away from the city, because there's going to be people after about a week and a half that are going to start getting hungry, and they're going to want things. And, I'm not going to say it's going to be a lot of people. It doesn't take a lot, but there's going to be some of those type of people out there. So if they hear your generator, you better, I hate to say it, you better have some arms around your house, because they're going to want your generator, and they're going to probably want what you have in your cupboards.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough situation to be in. You better know your neighbors pretty well, too.
Oh, yeah. You better know them real well. And keep in touch with them if anything goes down. Now, what I like what's coming up on our network is that all the new guys, the new host, all the shows are paranormal.
Yeah. Oh, you've got a really wide range of hosts lined up for the new year, and it's going to be fascinating. You got James Creechbaum, who is just a real researcher and into the paranormal like nobody's business. He's going to have some amazing guests on there, and of course we've got Eric Cooper from the Forest Moon Paranormal. I mean, those guys are they even got their own astral emergency response team out there, helping people with hauntings and possessions and even alien contact issues as well. So I can't imagine what's going to happen here with all 5 of these new hosts you got. Matter of fact, who's the last host we've got just recently on there?
Richard.
Richard, yeah.
And I almost scared to say his last name. Spassoff or
Spassoff, I think. Yeah, you're right.
Now, a little bit about him. His career started in Las Vegas, giving massages. And you know what type of people he was giving massages to?
I've heard of this. Go ahead, tell them.
Well, you heard of the mob back years ago in Las Vegas, right?
Oh, yeah.
So all these mob members, the bosses, right? They had their wives. And, to get their wives off their back, they would, hire him, to give them massages or take them out dancing or whatever. No romance, he said. But to take them out, and keep them busy, for they don't know what their husbands were out doing.
Oh, my word. Can you imagine the reality TV show that could spawn? The masseuse to the mob wives. I can see it now.
Yeah, well, I was mentioning to Richard when he was on my show, I said, in Las Vegas mainly, you go out to the desert there, and it's like when you're a kid, you go into the sporting goods store, and they used to have a big jar of jelly beans, and you could guess how many there are, and if you came very close, you won a prize.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of mentioned to him, I said, well, in Las Vegas, you go out in the desert there, how many bodies per mile?
Oh, man.
Let's face it. If you did something wrong in the casinos, you try to defraud the casinos, you upset some of the members, you got a free trip out to the desert. And if you were lucky, you were one of the ones that got to dig your own grave.
Oh, man. Postpone it a little bit.
Yeah. Could you imagine having to dig your own grave and then stand in it and get whacked?
Hopefully not this time around for me.
No,
we'll see.
I don't know. But, that's what was kind of, eerie when he was talking about that. And then he went through a stage where he's a comedian, too. So, he did on stage being a comedian, stand-up comedy. And then he also did a couple radio shows. And he interviewed people like Phyllis Diller, Buddy Hackett, all the main, movie stars and comedians back in the day.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to spend some time with Rich and talk about some of those celebrities that he got to know and interview because of my experience as being the host in the green room backstage at Universal Studios Amphitheater in Hollywood for many years. I'm sure we ran across some of the same people and can compare stories. That'll be fun.
Well, what's nice about his show is it's going to be paranormal, but it's going to have humor to it. And that's what's going to be interesting. A little bit of humor with the paranormal. And then you naturally got Eric's show, which has been around
Forest Moon Paranormal, yeah.
Yeah. And what I like about his show, like I was listening to you guys last night, that's why I was tired. I slept in as long as you did today, Michael.
Yes, you did.
It's like a round table. You sit there, right? And you just get in the subject and you talk about it. And then you get into another subject and you talk about it. And it's really cool. And I'm glad he's going to be on Night Dreams Talk Radio Network.
Yes, and just think of the niche that Eric Cooper and Forrest Moon Paranormal is going to fulfill from midnight till 2 a.m. on actually it's Sunday. It's late Saturday night, but Sunday mornings. That's quite a niche. I think there's a lot of. I have found out being on his FMP panel is that there's a whole lot of folks up at that hour, and they're real interested in what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I managed to stay up the whole time. And then I'll tell you what happened after you guys were done.
Yeah.
I was wide awake. So it was like I started watching on BBC, Doctor Who marathon.
Oh, Doctor Who, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I stayed watching that till about 5 o'clock in the morning because of your guys' show. I couldn't fall back to sleep because I was so excited listening to it. So we have him on. And then James' show, which he's a psychic, a medium, ghost hunter. And I don't know if you heard his show the other night. He did fantastic. He had a great guest on. So,
yes, he did.
So we're going to be covering everything like from your show, UFOs, a little bit about Bigfoot, and my show covering UFOs, Bigfoot, conspiracies with the government, you name it. We're going to be talking about it. And our network, just everybody kind of melts into it really, really good.
Yes, and I am going to be encouraging you, like most people have been over the last months, to continue your very amazing rants about whatever subject that you want to talk about. You have really got your pulse on what's going on around the world. And I can't wait to see some of those coming up here in the new year.
Oh, yeah. And I want a special, Tricia Boardman is listening, and she's my daughter. She's in Hemet, California. That's where I would normally ride my motorcycle to go see her for a couple of days, and then I would come back and see Art Bell. She's listening. I just wanted to say hi. James is on there right now, and boy, we're getting more people on here.
Oh, we got a lot of folks, and we've got different Facebook feeds going on there, so they can actually watch us talk with one another here. I think it's fantastic, Gary, that you've got your Facebook live cameras going in the studio there, because people they like to be able to match the voice to the face and the personality, and you have got one of the most iconic voices in paranormal radio. People just love to listen to you tell those stories. And it's fun to have them now say, oh, well, that's what Gary Anderson looks like.
Oh, yeah. I felt, better when they couldn't see my fat body. But, hey, I'm trying to lose a little bit of weight. But, you lost a lot, and I'm proud of you, my friend.
Oh, man. Well, thank you, Gary. For me, it was a health issue with my diabetic condition. I lost one kidney back in September, to the diabetes. And so the University of Washington Medical Center has this incredible bariatric surgery program that my insurance, Medicare, ponied up and paid for. So, my gosh, I am 92 pounds down since September, and my diabetic condition is disappearing. My stress off my one remaining kidney is totally turning around. My kidney is really back into full force again. So, and I'm feeling better,
Well, I'm going to blame my wife, Linda. Why I am fat. You know what? I mean, she is one of the most intelligent women that I ever knew. Back in the 80s, I used to design computers and, and plus be on the radio. But I actually owned a computer manufacturing company. And my wife wanted to learn how, and she learned electronics. That's why she runs a service center for Dell Computers. I mean, she's really smart. But one thing, I will say this, the world's worst cook. The day after we got married, she decided to make a fancy prime rib dinner for me. Now, she worked during the day. I worked during the day. I knew nothing about cooking. All I know is she took a frozen prime rib, right? We had a gas oven, which always was lukewarm, and she took that frozen